Labor Minister left stuttering as GMB's Richard Madeley issues blistering two-word verdict. Good Morning Britain host Richard Madeley and Labour's Hamish Falconer clashed over the government's involvement in brokering the Gaza peace deal. Richard Madeley pressed Hamish Falconer on the UK government's true involvement in the Gaza peace deal during a tense clash on Good Morning Britain. The frosty exchange came on the same day the Israel Defense Forces confirmed that 7 Israeli hostages, held by Hamas for 2 years, had been released to the Red Cross in Gaza. The remaining 13 hostages, along with the bodies of 28 others who died in captivity, are set to be transferred to the Israeli military today before being reunited with their families. However, Keir Starmer's government has faced backlash for claiming it played a vital role in securing the ceasefire. Cabinet Minister Bridget Phillipson was branded delusional by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, after she claimed the UK played a key role in brokering the Gaza peace deal during a Sky News interview. The Israeli government then responded, stating that the UK had done the opposite of playing a key role, citing its decision to recognize Palestine as undermining the peace process. Despite Falconer claiming it is a historic day, Madeley fumed, "Perhaps we shouldn't be claiming credit that isn't due to us." He explained that most of the world is acknowledging this as a triumph for Donald Trump, before mentioning the comment made by Phillipson. "Do you think she should have kept it buttoned?" he asked. Falconer hit back, "Richard, let me clear. This is a huge breakthrough. President Trump, his whole team and other mediators all deserve huge amounts of credit. I think what the Education Secretary said was perfectly reasonable. I don't think today is the day to argue about credit. There's a lot more important questions to be focused on. The UK has played a role." Not backing down, the presenter said, "It's not just the US ambassador to Israel that described her as delusional. The Israeli Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister said that we played the opposite of a key role in the peace deal because we declared that Palestine was a state." Madeley added that it was deeply unhelpful in terms of timing. Falconer began to stutter before gathering his thoughts, responding, "There's no secret that the Israeli and British government have a profound disagreement on a whole range of questions. Our recognition of the Palestinian state is one of the most obvious areas. Today is a happy day because we should see aid going in the way in which we have always insisted it should. I'm not going to enter into an argument with the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel, who is in fact a lady called Sharon Haskell. We do disagree with the Israeli government on a whole set of questions, but what is important now is that we all focus on phase." It was a tense and unforgettable morning on Good Morning Britain as Labour Minister Jonathan Reynolds found himself completely wrong-footed by Richard Madeley's no-nonsense questioning, and an even sharper two-word verdict that left the entire studio in stunned silence. Viewers tuning into Monday's episode expected the usual blend of political debate and breakfast-time charm, but few could have anticipated the verbal showdown that unfolded between Madeley and Reynolds. The discussion, meant to clarify Labour's stance on rising energy prices and public sector pay, rapidly descended into chaos when the minister appeared unable to give a straight answer, prompting Madeley to deliver a cutting phrase that instantly went viral. The segment began calmly enough. Richard and his co-host Susanna Reid introduced Reynolds with their trademark professionalism, noting that the Labour government was facing growing criticism over its handling of inflation and tax reform. The minister smiled confidently, papers neatly stacked in front of him, clearly prepared for a routine grilling. But as Madeley began to probe deeper, the tone shifted. "Minister, you've said repeatedly that the government is doing everything it can to ease the cost of living crisis," Madeley began, leaning forward slightly. "But families watching this morning don't feel that way. They're seeing bills go up, taxes go up, and wages stuck in the mud. So I'll ask again, what, specifically, are you doing this week to make their lives easier?" Reynolds smiled, glanced at his notes, and launched into a familiar talking point about long-term investment in green energy and economic stability. But before he could finish, Madeley interrupted. "With respect, Minister," he said sharply, "that's not what I asked." A flicker of discomfort crossed Reynolds's face. "Well, Richard, it's important to understand that we inherited a very challenging—" Madeley cut him off again. "It's always someone else's fault, isn't it?" he said, eyebrows raised. From that moment, it was clear the minister was losing control of the interview. Viewers could sense it too. Social media lit up within minutes, with hundreds posting clips and memes of the exchange. "Richard Madeley is on fire this morning," one user wrote. "That minister didn't stand a chance." As the back and forth continued, Madeley's frustration grew. He repeatedly pressed Reynolds for a concrete answer. Would the government rule out further tax increases? Would they commit to a pay rise for NHS workers before Christmas? But each time, Reynolds deflected, citing ongoing reviews and budget constraints. After nearly 8 minutes of circular discussion, Madeley leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and delivered the now famous two-word verdict. Utter waffle. The words landed like a thunderclap. There was a pause, long enough for the camera to capture Reynolds's stunned expression. Susanna Reid, sitting beside Madeley, instinctively glanced down at her notes, perhaps trying to mask her amusement. The minister opened his mouth to respond but could only stammer, "Well, I don't think that's fair," before Madeley jumped back in. "Minister, with all due respect, people at home don't want waffle," he continued. "They want straight answers. You're the government now, not the opposition. You've had more than a year to make a difference, and people are still struggling to pay for heating and food. So what's the plan?" Reynolds looked cornered. His usual composure faltered as he attempted to regroup. "We are taking action, Richard," he insisted. "But these challenges don't disappear overnight." Madeley gave a wry smile. "That's exactly the kind of thing people are tired of hearing," he said, shaking his head. "You can't just keep saying, 'Give it time,' when the meter's running and the fridge is empty." By now, the atmosphere in the studio was electric. Even the production crew, usually stoic during interviews, appeared tense as the exchange grew more heated. Susanna Reid eventually stepped in to cool the temperature, offering a diplomatic segue to another topic. But the damage was done. Within minutes, Utter Waffle was trending on X, formerly Twitter, with thousands praising Madeley for saying what everyone was thinking. Others accused him of being too aggressive, arguing that his style bordered on disrespectful. But whatever the opinion, no one could deny the impact. Political commentators were quick to weigh in. BBC pundit Lewis Goodall posted, "Richard Madeley is becoming the Jeremy Paxman of breakfast TV. He cuts through spin like a knife through butter, and politicians clearly underestimate him at their peril." Meanwhile, viewers flooded Good Morning Britain's official page with comments. One wrote, "This is why we need Richard. He doesn't let them wriggle out of it. Every other interviewer just nods politely." Another added, "Jonathan Reynolds looked completely out of his depth. If that's the best Labour's got, no wonder people are frustrated." Behind the scenes, insiders reportedly described the atmosphere after the interview as frosty. Reynolds was said to have left the studio immediately, declining to take part in the usual post-segment chat with the hosts. One crew member claimed he muttered something under his breath as he removed his microphone, though ITV refused to comment. A spokesperson for the Labour Party later issued a statement defending Reynolds. Jonathan gave a detailed account of the government's ongoing work to deliver economic fairness and energy reform. He remains focused on implementing policies that benefit working families across the country. Still, even supporters admitted it was a rough morning. "This was a communications failure," one Labour aide told the Mirror. "You can't go on national television and get flustered by Richard Madeley. He's relentless, and that's why viewers trust him." As for Madeley, he appeared unfazed by the online storm. Wrapping up the program later that morning, he even poked fun at himself, quipping, "Apparently I'm trending again, must be a Monday." Susanna chuckled and replied, "You and your two-word reviews." But beneath the humor lay a serious message. Madeley's confrontational interview style, once dismissed as old-fashioned, is increasingly resonating with an audience weary of political spin. His ability to puncture rehearsed lines with a simple phrase or piercing question has made him one of the most talked-about broadcasters on British television. In an era where politicians are often accused of speaking in circles, perhaps Utter Waffle was more than just a soundbite, it was a rallying cry. By midday, clips of the exchange had racked up millions of views, and even rival shows were discussing it. Talk TV's Julia Hartley-Brewer called it the interview of the week, while Channel 5's Jeremy Vine show hosted a segment titled, "Was Madeley too harsh, or just honest?" For Labour, the fallout may linger. Insiders fear the viral moment could reinforce perceptions of indecision within the party, especially as pressure mounts to deliver tangible progress before the next election. For Madeley, it's another headline-grabbing moment in a career defined by fearless candor and an instinct for the jugular.